Hello, welcome back to the Everything is Black and White podcast. Andrew Musgrove, hope you guys are all doing well. Bringing you a quick additional episode this week, all about Newcastle United star man in the middle, Sandro Tonali, because his comments after the Champions League victory over Bilbao have certainly provoked quite the reaction across the fan base. I'm going to play the clip from the interview in a brief moment. But first, a few notes. If you're listening on the audio only platform, do leave us a rating and review. If you're watching on YouTube, do leave us a comment and do hit thumbs up and hit subscribe as well. And remember, this episode is sponsored by NordVPN. The link is in the podcast description box. Get an exclusive discount on your plan, no risk with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Right, Sandro Tonali, the man in the middle, the best midfielder I've seen in 30 years or so of supporting Newcastle United. Now I was lucky enough to see the likes of Gary Speed, Robert Lee, Johan Cabaye, and for me, Sandro Tonali is better than those three names as mentioned. He's got a fantastic engine on him, fantastic stamina, can pick a pass, knows where the goal is, strong in the challenge, and he has those leadership qualities as well. But unfortunately, when you are that good, you are going to get some of the best teams in the world starting to track you. And as he gets better with every single passing month, those links are only going to grow stronger. What I love, though, is the fact that you think about how his time started on Tyneside. He quickly had to serve a 10-month ban, and that really could have been the end of things. That could have affected him mentally and physically, but he knuckled down, he worked hard, he got the support of the club, and in return, he showed loyalty to them by taking a voluntary pay cut and signing a secret extension. And Newcastle also have the option to extend that further to 2030. So when that news broke earlier this month, there was cause for celebration, sort of ebbed away slightly following his comments after Bilbao. And what I'll do now is I'll play those comments and then we'll get further into the video. And I'll tell you why I think there's been a reaction that just isn't really warranted, an overreaction to Sandro Tonali's comments about his long-term future.
You see your future here long term?
Yeah, this is a tough question because the football is you need to think year for year, because I think I don't want to say I want to stay here 10 years and in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years I will go. So every player here, I want to think just for me, but year for year, because this is football. And every summer, the last summer was tough for us, for Alex, but this is football. If you have a option for your life, for another team, you need to think everything in the football. And I don't want to say yes, I want to stay here 10 years, but now I'm happy here. I don't feel nothing for the other team.
For me, I applaud his honesty. I applaud him for not saying something that he doesn't believe in. It's just a very grown-up way to answer that question. Secondly, for anyone totally losing their minds and thinking that's him gesturing for a move, it's not. He says he's happy. And what that does for Newcastle United, it gives them the opportunity to persuade him to stay longer. And look, he's not saying he's going to leave next summer. He's just saying that he just takes his career year by year. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all. It's not him saying, come and get me to Real Madrid or Man City. It's just him saying, I'm not going to offer niceties to the fans by promising I'm going to stay here 10 years and then in 3 or 4 years' time, I leave. And I think that just has to be listened to, has to be read in the right way. Of course, you can interpret how you want, but I'm not worried about any one of those comments. I am realistic about Sandro Tonali's future on Tyneside. As I said, he's that good. He's naturally going to attract the biggest clubs. And what Newcastle United need to do is ensure that they get Champions League football again for next season. And right now, it's not looking likely because their start to the season hasn't gone quite to plan. But comments like this, public comments from your biggest players, can focus the mind. And I think that can be used as added motivation from the boardroom down. It won't be just Sandro Tonali having this train of thought. There will be other stars in that squad who have the condition of Champions League football as something they need to stop on Tyneside or to be happier at Newcastle United, and I think that's fine and just, especially when you're a club who has these ambitions. Then you must get Champions League football every single season. We know how important it is when it comes to the money, but also for these type of players to fulfill their ambitions, and Champions League football is exactly what they need. He mentions Alexander Isak there, and we knew that Alexander Isak was under contract with Newcastle United. We thought, maybe naively at the time, that they were well protected with the length of that deal. And perhaps that has also kind of focused the mind when it comes to the futures of some of Newcastle United's biggest stars. Maybe we shouldn't be that naive to think that just because someone has got a long deal and a further extension on top of that, that they are locked in and certain to stop for all that time. That's just not the way it is. It's football. The contracts aren't worth the paper they are written on. What has to happen is that Newcastle United need to match Tonali's ambition and other players within that squad. Alexander Isak would argue they didn't do that. I would argue they tried their very best. This is about Tonali. He says he's happy, and that's the main thing. And like I say, he's not looking to move. He's not pushing for a move. I don't think that's a come and get me plea. I think he's just answered it openly and honestly. And Eddie Howe as well has said similar in his press conference today, because naturally he was asked about it. And what he said was that he's always comfortable with honesty. None of us can make massive statements about the future because life is unpredictable and football is at the sharp end of that. I think Sandro has been very honest. He is happy, and he said he's enjoying his football. When I see him every day, I see a player who's happy and feels fulfilled. He is happy with the team he is in and happy with his teammates. He loves it here in Newcastle. Our challenge is to keep providing him that environment. I don't think it is our job to necessarily keep any player happy in terms of where we finish in the league. The players themselves have to find a way to be successful with the team that we have. But I think off the pitch and the environment, that's where we have to provide somewhere that all the players enjoy and want to be part of. So Eddie Howe knows exactly what he and the board have to do to keep not just Tonali, but the other players happy. And I think these comments won't be looked upon badly by anyone at the club. Eddie Howe has spoken about honesty there, and that's exactly the camp I am in. Interestingly, there doesn't appear to be a release clause in this extension, which is good news for Newcastle United. What it means is that they can name their price, and as Tonali gets bigger and better, they can name a price that I think would be close to at least the price Liverpool paid for Alexander Isak, if not a little bit more. So Newcastle United have that kind of power there. But again, I go back to the point I've made. They have the power to do the right things to persuade Sandro Tonali that this is the place for him to be for a long, long time. And again, you look at the numbers he mentioned in that clip there. He talks about 10 years as long term, but then leaving in maybe 3 or 4 years. And I tell you something, if Newcastle United held on to Sandro Tonali for the next 3 or 4 years, I'd be very, very happy at that. No one stops around anymore for the best part of a decade. I think, you look at the team that's currently has Jamal Lascelles has been here since 2016. Joe Linton's maybe been here since 2019, perhaps. Those are the long-term players. But really, in this modern day game of football, longevity at one club doesn't really tend to happen. And I don't think his comments about not promising to stop for a decade should be a surprise to anyone and shouldn't be looked upon as a negative. What should be looked upon is his honesty and really the carrot and the stick sort of thing to the club that said, you know what, I'm happy here, but you've got to keep making the reasons for me to be happy here. And I think that's exactly what they will do. The question itself has been slightly criticised by some on social media, and I've had a bit of back and forth with certain people on X. I've got no issue with the question whatsoever. This is the first time that Sandro Tonali has been put in front of the press, to my knowledge, since the story broke about that extension. So naturally, you're going to ask him about that, about his long-term future. Of course you are. That's your job. If this was the third or fourth opportunity that the press had to speak to Tonali and this question was being asked, then yes, I could see why people would suggest that there is an agenda to unsettle him, like people think there was with Alexander Isak. But here, I think it's a perfectly reasonable and valid question to ask Sandro Tonali, because simply it's the first opportunity that has been there in front of the press to do so. And I do think the question was absolutely fine. But let me know in the comments what you think about Tonali's comments and an answer. Are you worried about what he's had to say to the press about his long-term future, or do you just take it as it comes and we will see where we're at in the summer and where we're at in a few years' time? I certainly don't think there's much to be worried about. I'm relaxed about it. Newcastle are relaxed about it. Sandro Tonali has probably woke up a day wondering about the fuss and why there is such a fuss about what he said, because honestly, I don't think there is cause to be concerned. I don't think there's cause to kick up a fuss from anybody's point of view. It's just Sandro Tonali being honest about his future. And I'm not fussed one little bit, but perhaps some of you guys are. Let me know in the comments your thoughts. Pleasure to speak to you guys. Very quick episode, but I just wanted to get my thoughts out there on Sandro Tonali. Hopefully he's here for a long time to come. But certainly right now, I don't think there's anything to worry about short term. It's all about getting Newcastle United back into the Champions League, investing in the right players, continuing to grow the squad, continue to improve the squad, and making the right case for Tonali and other stars that this is the place to be for the best years of their career.